So we're going to create a pivot table in a new worksheet, and let's bring in the month number as rows. I'm going to look at sales, profit, and profit percentage. So now we can add what are called slicers. Slicers are like filters that we have seen before. Right? Suppose we want to add a slicer, but we go and right click and add a slicer. Now that will add a slicer here, and if you select any value from here, the pivot table will get filtered by the selection, and you can control how this slicer window appears, okay, by going to options, and then see you can control the height, width, and so on, how many columns. Suppose we want this to be like that, you can do it like that. Okay. So now when you add a slicer, what's happening is your filter context gets one more layer of filtering. Okay. Without the slicer, filter context for the table comes only by the row, okay, and the row being the month number. So month number was the only context. But when you have a slicer like this and you allow users to select, so now you have an additional layer of filtering context. So you must always be thinking in terms of filter context, okay, when you're working on these tables. Suppose if you select multiple years, and you can control that too, whether you can control whether multiple values can be selected or not. Okay. Now one more thing you should notice here is the grand total. Okay. Now the grand total here is the sum of all of these sales, right? All of that. Okay. Sum of profit again is the same thing. But for profit percentage, it's not the same thing, because if you add all of that, obviously you're not going to get 41%, right? And the reason for that is again very important to understand. The grand sum is not actually calculated by adding the numbers in the pivot table. The grand total is not, this is worth repeating, it is not the total of what is appearing in the pivot table. Sometimes it will be the same, sometimes it will not be. Like right now, for the first two columns, the grand total happens to be the same as the total of the numbers that appear. So what's important to understand is that the computations, every cell computation and every total computation is made not against the pivot table, but against the source data. So you go back to the database, the data model, every time. Okay? And you apply the filter context. So if you want to calculate that value there, okay, then you go to the database and apply the filter context. And the filter context would be year equal to 2001, 2002, 2003. So it will pick up all the records for these 3 years. And then the filter context is 3, so it will then pick up from that subset only month 3, and then sum those total sales. Okay. Similarly, the other rows. Now when you come to this one, the filter context here is the year 2001, 2, and 3. Okay, month is not in the filter context. So those 3 years worth of observations will be gathered, and then you sum them. Now similarly here, profit percentage is a measure that says take the total profit divided by the total sales. So for that filter context, it will find the total profit, which is this, and then it will find the total sales, which is that, and then divide the total sales into profit, and that's why you get 41% here, and not simply the sum of the profit percentages. There is one more thing that I want to show, and that would be the sort order. And to illustrate that, let's say instead of month name, we would like to have instead of month number, we want to have month name, like January, February, March, and so on. Okay? We don't have that information in the data sheet, so let's first create a column for the month name instead of month number. So for that, we have a function called format. Okay. Format the order date. So we have order date right there, and the format is that. Okay, so that will give you a 3-letter month abbreviation. Okay, click enter and you get the month name. Let's call that just month. Okay, so now let's go to the pivot table and remove month number and put month name in there, or just simply month. Okay. So now you have month instead of a number, but there is a problem, and the problem is that this is sorted by alphabetical order and not the month order. You want it to be in the month order, like January, February, March, and not in alphabetical order. And you can achieve that by going here, and here under home we have what is called sort by column. So if you select that sort by column, then you can select the column that needs to be sorted by another column in whatever order you want. So you want to sort the column month by month number. Okay. So there was a similar thing that we did in Tableau too, if you remember. Okay. Now if you go to the pivot table and you see it is sorted